Hollywood's past opened up fame and fortune if one had the looks and style, and become a heartthrob or famous. The early days covered up scandal and deaths, and there was a lot of them. The heady days of drink, drugs, and vice was plenty. Also murder. We're going to look into some of those cases in a series from the early day, known as its golden years. The fad was to be charming and handsome. We take a trip to who found fame, money, and also ended up dead. William Desmond Taylor was shot dead in his luxurious apartment in Los Angeles in 1922. At this point in his life he was a director of many well-known films and owned his own production company and president of the Motion Picture Directors Association. He was of English origin and had the charming quality of a gent. But he also was a young film star in his early days in Hollywood. He already had a full and interesting life. His lavish apartment, that of an educated man, also had a butler who would cook his breakfast and attend to Taylor's needs. But on arriving one morning at 7:30 he noticed from outside that his living room lights were still on, which was unusual. On entering he found Taylor on the living room floor, cold and dead. $78 was still in his wallet inside his jacket, to which surely it was no robbery, and there was no signs of a struggle. But his body seemed posed and positioned, feet together and arms aside his body. The police called and an hour later Coroner William MacDonald arrived at the scene. Inspecting the scene and the body, to which as he turned Taylor over he found one gunshot in his back. This was murder, and he was shot from behind. In the investigation Taylor's present and past history was looked into. One Edward Sands, who had worked for Taylor as his secretary until 1921, forged checks of $5,000 and possessions of Taylor. Sands was never found, but it was thought Sands had knowledge of his past and blackmail was a possible venture from Sands. The last person to see Taylor was silent movie actress Mabel Normand, termed the Queen of Comedy. She arrived at Taylor's house at 7 that evening, and left at 7:45, blowing a kiss out of the window at Taylor, and then drove off with her driver. It was said that they were lovers, but she and her driver said they were not. Police later did find guns at her house, but they were not connected to crime of Taylor. She also was a drug addict that upset Taylor and even testified against her drug dealers. This caused suspicion, thinking it was a payback crime, that of the drug dealer's revenge, but no evidence was found. The further investigation found that his neighbors heard a gunshot the night before at 8 at night and looked through their front door. They saw a man on Taylor's doorstep wearing an overcoat with the collar turned up and a cap pulled down over their face, but the person seemed to look back to say goodbye to someone inside. A better look at the man on leaving, the neighbors said they looked like a motion picture style burglar. The investigation was falling short of suspects, and looking at Taylor's life there was no misadventures, only that he left a wife and child in his younger days. He had been born in Ireland and a son of a British Army officer. In 1891 he went to the USA to work on a ranch in Kansas, then moved to New York and set up an antique business and married and had a daughter. But a few years later he walked out on them to move to Los Angeles and became an actor. He later was officially divorced from his wife. But while searching Taylor's home, they found a pink nightgown and a love letter from a Mary Miles Minter, another leading lady in the silent films. Taylor had directed her and had $1 million contract. Again, it seems there was no real relationship, as they found Taylor was not interested in Minter as she was only 19 years of age. But they found that Mary Miles Minter's mother was a controlling stage mother, Charlotte Shelby. And Charlotte had told Taylor that, "If you come near my daughter I will shoot you." This was said in company of others. On the day of Taylor's murder, the mother had an argument with her daughter about Mary's feeling for Taylor. The mother was concerned that Taylor was to run away with her daughter and get married, so she locked Mary in her bedroom. Shelby's elder daughter now appears too in a civil suit against her mother for mismanagement of finances. She also thought her mother was responsible for Taylor's murder and paid off the district attorney not to prosecute her. But the daughter had paranoid delusions, and with the hatred against her mother, her word was discounted. The case became a confusing mess. But accusation against the mother did not go away, and years later the mother demanded a grand jury to decide her plea, in a courtroom, in other words. She would get her day in 1937. And in the trial she claimed her innocence and also now accuses her daughter Mary for Taylor's murder. Her story was that Mary escaped from the bedroom when she locked her in on the night of the murder. Mary's hair, found in Taylor's house, was evidence. The grand jury neither found Shelby guilty or innocent, so still an open case. This case was cold until 1964 in a deathbed confession. Margaret Gibson, an elderly lady, had a heart attack at a Hollywood home, and while waiting for an ambulance confessed to her neighbors that she had murdered Taylor, not adding more. She died later that day. It was discovered that she had been a silent movie actress under the name of Patricia Palmer and acted with Taylor. She was 27 at the time of his murder, but never was a suspect in the investigation at the time. In 1940 all the case files were lost, so if she was ever mentioned we will never know. But what was the truth? As one person said, he was a crafty, cultured villain who had affairs, prone to depression and a heavy drinker. Information years after tell different to the police investigation, and the reputation of Taylor. The night of Taylor's death the film industry was at his house going through his stuff. The first doctor on scene said Taylor died of a stomach problem, and this doctor was never seen again. Shelby, the mother, supposedly owned a rare .38 caliber pistol and bullets that matched the gun that shot Taylor, and after this information was known, she threw the gun in the river. And one police investigator said he was told to lay off the case from those above in rank. Because of this case, Hollywood wrote up morality clauses for the actors. There is the rumor of Shelby, the mother, had had a love interest with Taylor who was around the same age. Taylor, being the ladies' man and having the charm and influence to woo younger ladies, could have rejected the mother, which may have caused the spite with the mother. We have the two possible younger ladies that seem to adore Taylor as evidence of love interests. We have the evidence of a possible public person's life being covered up by the film industry, which caused clauses to be put in place for contracts. We have the police saying they were told to lay off the case from higher sources. Taylor seems to be caught up in a triangle that led to his murder.